Okay, I think the record is started. Excellent. All right. Okay, once again, welcome everyone. So in order to create a little bit more of a sense of a community, we wanted to do a little icebreaker to begin the call today. So it's gonna be quick. I wish we had more time to get to know each other, but we don't. But I think this is better than nothing. So we're gonna break out into pairs. Zoom is kind of like magic. So you will be basically prompted to join what is called a breakout room, and then you will be paired with another person. And in that group, you are welcome to share your name, pronouns, location, and why you're here today. It'll be brief, just a couple minutes, but hopefully that will give a little bit of a sense of expanding our friendships and network. So just hang in there and I will send us into our breakout rooms. Okay, so it's fairly easy. Just follow the instructions and join. You will be prompted to join a breakout room. Just go ahead and click yes. And then once you are in the breakout room, just, very briefly, just introduce yourself, your name, and what brings you here today. Okay, ready, go. Great. For the folks who are still here in the large room, you are more than welcome to share a little bit about yourself here or join one of the breakout rooms that you were assigned to. For the folks who just joined, welcome. We are just doing a quick icebreaker in the Zoom breakout rooms. We're just sharing our names, our locations, and our preferred pronouns, and what brings us here today. So we just have a couple minutes. If anyone who's still here in the large group, if you would like to go ahead and just introduce yourself, you're more than welcome to do so. So I can start. My name is Roberta, and I am with the BlackRock's Big Problem Network, and I am based in Northern California. And what brings me here today is just my desire to continue to pressure BlackRock and do even more actions outside their offices, because we've been quiet for a little bit. Yeah, anyone else who's here would like to introduce themselves?
Sure, I can. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. My name is Steve Payne. I use he, him, his pronouns, and I work on the Beyond Coal campaign for the Sierra Club. And I work on trying to get coal-fired power plants in North and South Dakota replaced with renewable energy. And I am here because BlackRock is one of the largest investors in both coal plants in the Dakotas and fossil fuel infrastructure in Minnesota, where I live and work. So I am interested in joining this international work to pressure BlackRock to divest from fossil fuel.
Great. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Steve. Anyone else would like to introduce themselves? We only have 1 minute left, so just quickly your name and your preferred pronouns.
Am I part of this breakout group?
Yeah, yes, absolutely.
Hi, sorry, just joined. I have family dinner every Thursday night. I have to prepare. Anyway, they're gone now. But so I'm in Brookline, Massachusetts, Mothers Out Front, and I am very, very pleased and very impressed with your organization and going after the money and what you're doing. Mary Cerulli and others in Mothers Out Front, Sarah Snow, Alfred Brunel, if you don't know him yet, you will know him, international lawyer, human rights activist, already saved a huge forest in Liberia called the Lungs of West Africa. Anyway,
Yes.
so this is very important. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. And welcome, everyone. We are actually about to return to the large group. Please continue to introduce yourself in the chat, and I'll see you all in the big room. Great. Welcome back, everyone. Folks are slowly returning to the large room. Give it a few more seconds. Welcome back, everyone. Great. I think most people are back in the large room, so let's move forward. So I would like to give a brief overview of what to expect from the call today. If anyone who's not speaking, if you don't mind, please keeping your lines muted throughout the call. That would be great. Thank you so much. But yes, so today together, we're gonna get a little bit of overview of the campaign, the BlackRock's Big Problem campaign, where we're at, what happened in the last few months, and what comes next. We're gonna be talking about the September swarm, why we're hosting a swarm, and what is it, what does it look like, and how you can plug in. And then we're going to be talking a little bit about, just a very brief, condensed organizing training, like what does it look like to host a small action. And then we're going to give a little bit of updates on the kind of actions already planned in September. And then we're just going to be wrapping up and sharing next steps with everyone. Throughout the call, there's going to be opportunities for you all to chime in and share your ideas, your expertise, and your knowledge. And yes, you will be prompted to share a little bit about the work that you do as well. So just until then, please keep your lines muted. And with that, we're going to start the call by actually sharing a brief video. It's about like 4 minutes long. This video does a really good job at kind of describing our campaign and who is BlackRock, why we're targeting BlackRock, and the kind of victories that our movement had in the last few months, and why we still need to do more, why we still need to go after BlackRock. And so just bear with me while I share my screen so we can see the video. And okay. Can you guys see my screen? Great.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you. Hopefully the audio is good. Okay. Here you go.
Larry Fink, the CEO of BlackRock, a $7 trillion investment firm, said that his company will now make investment decisions based in part on a company's commitment to environmental sustainability. That's a very big deal.
Our families and our communities and everything that we hold dear.
By the time we are done, the word BlackRock will be the very image of filthy, toxic, and unethical investment. This is the third time we're out here, so if we're not going to hear from any BlackRock senior management, any employees who want to come and talk to us, our only remaining option is disruption.
We're having investors who are focusing on more sustainable strategies.
News from BlackRock this morning. The company's CEO, Larry Fink's annual letter is out.
We believe in most cases fossil fuels will not be a good investment.
Boards will now ask CEOs what they're doing to help save the planet.
We did make a statement that coal is not a good investment now. And I believe this is going to be a really major change in how we all do this.
What the banks have done to me. This is what democracy looks like.
No longer can you invest and finance fossil fuel infrastructure.
This is what democracy looks like. This is what democracy looks like.
Yes. Thank you, everyone, for your long attention. So yes, I hope that video was, a good overview of kind of what the campaign has done so far and where we are right now. I'm sure that you may have a few more questions. You may still have some questions, and if you do, please hold tight. We'll open it up for questions and answers in a little bit. But now I actually want to pass it to my friend and colleague Mary from Climate Finance Actions in Boston, who's been doing a lot of work on BlackRock alongside many other amazing activists in Massachusetts. And Mary is going to talk to us a little bit about, yes, why we're continuing to target BlackRock. What is the September storm? What does it entail? And all of the fun stuff. So Mary, I'm going to pass it to you.
Okay, great. It's great to see you, all of you. And are you going to share your screen, Roberta, for the slides?
I am. Just bear with me for.
Sure. And just so so everyone knows, our small team here based out of Boston has been working with BlackRock's Big Problem for almost 2 years. And wow, it's been quite a ride. And so many folks said, there's no way you can go up against this huge company, the largest investor in the biggest investor in the world. And so we were like, well, why not? And we've had some great wins, as you've seen. And now it's time to have that sustained pressure, have those diverse set of voices in this really very savvy campaign, kind of go at it again. Like, we haven't gone away. So you can go to the next slide. And it's interesting to note, well, I'm going to tell you about the swarm in a sec. So we'll go to the next slide and we'll just talk about how BlackRock, could you change the slide, Roberta? How BlackRock said all these things in January. Larry Fink came out and said, climate change, climate change, climate change, and made big promises. And I know that it was because of the public pressure. But the funny part is that he came out in July, just a couple months ago, with its, BlackRock came out with its stewardship report and said, yes, climate change is really important and it's a risk and we're going to do all these great things. Yet they haven't done much. So now is the time to ramp up the pressure. Next slide, please. And so you ask what a swarm is, and this is such a good image, for me anyway, because I think of locusts. And you know, we've had problems in Africa with locusts. And locusts are usually very kind of nice insects, and they kind of are solitary, except when they get the right set of what do you call it? Like, if they get a lot of rain, if they have certain food, then they start to get really gregarious, and the scientists call it gregarious. And so this is what we can do, and we can create a swarm, and we can create this amazing pressure from all different cities in all different ways to show BlackRock and Larry Fink and the rest of the employees that we are serious. And so what we call that is a distributed action. So it's really fun to know that here in Boston, we are doing an action, and in San Francisco and in Minnesota and in British Columbia. And, you know, we have people from all over the country, all over North America here. And even there's folks in Europe that are starting to plan and do their own campaigning against BlackRock. And so what we'd like to see is that any time from mid-September to the end, their actions. And they don't have to be super fancy, but we do want them to be safe in this new world of COVID. And what will happen is that BlackRock will, like, whoa, they're over there, they're over there, they're over there. And so what we'll do at the end is to come back together, and we'll have a compilation of all the different on the ground actions. And that will be on September 30th. So the next slide, please. So what are our new demands? After there was a little bit of movement from BlackRock, what are our demands now? And BlackRock can do this. It's not out of the realm. So we want BlackRock to stop investing in dirty fuels and have a stronger coal policy. It just dipped its toe in the beginning of the year. Not enough. We want them to stop investing in those companies that are destroying forests, especially in the Amazon. And along with that deforestation, those companies are violating human rights, land grabbing. It's just horrendous. There's been murders. And so we want them to recognize and really have a meaningful policy on human rights. Next slide. So, what kind of action can you take? And I believe my wonderful friend and colleague Debbie New is going to take this part, or is it Sarah Bueller? Someone's going to take this part. But anyway, you see on this slide that we're all about small, socially distant actions.
I think Sarah, Sarah was-
Yes, so is Sarah going to do this?
Yes.
Sorry.
No,
Okay, so yeah, and feel free. I'm always available to talk. And thank you so much for being here. Sarah B.
Hey, thank you, Mary. Always a pleasure to see your face on Zoom. Excellent. So I don't know about the rest of you, but watching that video, I actually teared up a little because it's been so long since we've taken the streets, and that it's felt like a good thing, good way to do it. So very excited for this, but definitely we're operating under new constraints and new awarenesses, and it isn't the worst way to do actions. So we're looking at small, excruciatingly safe actions outside. So the first tier of targets is BlackRock's offices. So we have a couple in the works already for some of the big cities, and we can plug you in, or you can host another one. The beauty of this type of swarm and distributed organizing is that we'll have all of the sort of like factoids and ideas and social media and all that you'll need. So if you'd like to do coal, or if you have deep connection with tar sands work, you can pick that and then make that your theme at BlackRock's office. So the second tier of targets, if you don't have a BlackRock in your town, which not the worst thing either, there is a list of their offices in North America, and it includes some places that you might not think, like Boca Raton. So have a look, see if any of that is in your town, and then let's get planning. Secondarily, small socially distant actions outside of fossil fuel sites or infrastructure that BlackRock is invested in. So we can help with that. Once you go through this list, you don't see one. We do have researchers and research about who is invested in what. So that's the second one. And then of course, we're gonna have a robust online component. So folks who are immunocompromised, folks who live with those who are immunocompromised, people who just don't live in the right, these towns. We're going to have a really lovely way to sort of come together online while we're pressuring BlackRock. So as part of that swarm, that buzz, that noise, I've been alone in a room with one mosquito. Imagine so many mosquitoes. So we're going to do little zaps at BlackRock's HQ, maybe some of their head executives. And that's still evolving. So if you have suggestions or really cool ideas you want to pull off or think others would, you can get in touch with me. There will be contact info with the follow-up email that goes out. Covers it, Roberta? Did I miss anything? Don't think so. All right, well then we're gonna pass it over to Debbie New, a comrade of Mary's in Boston with Climate Finance Action. All right, take it, Debbie.
Thanks. It's so great to be here with all of you tonight. And this part of the call is about how we actually take action. In other words, this is a mini training, a super fast training. It's just an overview of some of the important components that go into leading an action, participating in action. What are the top 10 things we all need to know to have strong on-street actions, especially now during COVID? So how do we do this? I'm assuming a range of experience of people on this call. Maybe you've been to an action, maybe you've supported an action by helping with one part of it. Maybe you've led an action or many actions. So I just want you to know that I'm not an expert. I have been at actions of different sizes, but I'm just starting to get into leading them and trying to understand everything that has to go into effective ones. So I'm going to zip through these top 10 items, but at the end of each one, I'm going to pause for my colleagues, Roberta, Sarah, Mary, Pete, other people who have organizing experience to jump in and add anything I'm missing. And then after number 10, I'm going to ask other people on the call what, in your experience, this is missing. So I welcome your input. Next slide. So the first thing these days, number one thing is to be safe. So that means masks for everyone. And you may want to bring masks with you if you're in charge of other people. And as we know, 6 feet apart is the distance to observe, but the guidelines that are linked at the bottom of the slide, and I'll put a link in the chat, they actually suggest 10 feet apart. Sometimes people on the street get exuberant, especially when you're all together and you've been alone in your house, and it's really hard to observe the distance. So that's an important thing to ask your people to observe, and also to let people know it's okay to ask for more space and to also respect people who need more space. So the last action that we did that you see here in Boston, we sent out multiple messages to people in advance, and we reviewed with people when we met before the action, and we said masks, we said at least 6 feet apart, and we said please feel free to ask for more space and respect space for other people. So the link here on the slide, and will be in the chat soon, is to a document that was created by Roberta on the call, and also a colleague of hers in San Francisco. It's really short and simple, and it's something you can share with all your people. So of course, modeling this safety yourself is really important. So I'll just pause there to put the link in the chat and see if anyone of my colleagues has something to add. Okay, next slide. And I'm just dropping the link in the chat so you can all look at that document. So get organized, and we have help for you. There is a link in this document, which I'll also drop into the chat, that takes you to this action planning template that talks you through all sorts of different steps that you need to take, different things to think about. There are charts that you can adapt and fill in. So obviously you need a date, you need a location. You might think about what the different roles are you need. Those are in this document. What's your budget? BlackRock's Big Problem Sunrise Project is, it's possible, could fund some of what you're doing, so we can follow up with you about that. What kind of outreach do you need to do? These are going to be small actions, so the outreach doesn't need to be huge. We're going to talk more in a minute about contacting people and also following up with them, because it's not just one action. Just pause really quickly there. Anything I missed? Okay, next slide. So here we are at outreach. Email is good, but if your email inbox looks anything like mine, it's a little bit unreliable in terms of contacting people. Calling is better. Who picks up the phone nowadays? Texting is also good. So collect cell phone numbers. It's a really great way to remind people, contact people who get lost on the way there and that kind of thing. So not just one channel of communication, but multiple, and send reminders. So this is not just about taking action. It's also about creating a hub wherever you are to continue to take action, because it's going to take more than this September swarm. It's going to take more than just the one action. And we want to build relationships with people so that we keep building the movement. Anything else about outreach? Okay. Number 4, signs. You can print them. You can see behind this young person, there's a beautifully printed, enormous sign, and there will be images, graphics, materials for you to take to a printer wherever you are and print, if that's how you want to go. But homemade is good too. You can see her sign is really strong and effective. It's simple and to the point. If you want, you can host an art build to get a little bit more elaborate with signs or other kinds of visuals that you want to create. But of course, these days, that has to be COVID safe somehow as well. So you could provide people guidelines for creating their own signs or creating art at home that they can bring in. Anything else about signs?
Yeah, Debbie, hi, it's Sarah here.
Yeah.
Hi, I just wanted to say about hosting an art build. I'm organizing a small action on September the 15th. And, you know, you're right. We can't do socially distanced. No one has a big enough house to do socially distanced art builds. So it is a question of talking with people, sending them sketches, and then sort of making sure they have the supplies they need. I just dropped off a whole load of stuff at someone's house today, and she's just going to get on with it on her own. So, you know, trying to sort of keep things safe is a different world we're living in right now from that point of view.
Thank you. That's a really great point. Next slide. Which brings us to number 5. And there are a few slides here about creating images because these are small actions and we want to make them bigger by creating good images and sharing them. So one thing that I learned recently is that you can be very clever about showing where you are, so we can show that these actions are happening all over the place. If you look at the picture on the left and you notice behind the woman on the left, there's a double-decker bus that's red, which to me, you know, these days it may not mean it's London, but to me it says London, and in fact it is. And on the right, lower down, you can see Faneuil Hall, Quincy Market, Boston. It looks very New England revolutionary, that kind of thing. That's where our action took place. So we wanted to make sure that there are street signs or iconic buildings or that kind of thing that really locate your action, and you don't even have to say where it is. People can just see it. Next slide. And of course, visuals are important too to capture. So a photographer friend of mine said, start by zooming out, get the big picture. And then she said, then zoom in so you can get people, their faces, the details. This is an action here you see in San Francisco, and you can see it's really impressive. This is an advanced level action with a huge street painting. It's really inspiring. We haven't done this yet in Boston, but we hope to. We're trying to learn how to do it. But what I love about this is the picture of the person who is actually doing the painting. I love that action shot. So you're looking for both, big and small. Next slide. And of course, it's good to have one person designated to take photos and also one designated person to take video. Of course, anybody can take photos and videos, and you want to collect those from your people. In Boston, we use a Google folder where people can dump all of their materials in, and then we can keep using that stuff. So this is a photo of us in Boston. I'm doing the sound, and my friend John is holding the camera and interviewing one of the people. We dressed up in a huge red balloon suit to show that BlackRock is ballooning, literally in this picture. And our friend John, who's a professional film editor, said, make sure you hold your phone horizontally, because then that footage can be used in a standard video. So you can show people this image. Make sure the clips that people take are short, so that you can just share those on social media without having to edit. Next slide. And here we are at number 6, which is the amplification of what you're doing, what your messages are, and what the images are that you've collected. So going digital makes you louder and stronger. You can do a social media training, telling people how to tweet. Some of us still don't know how. That would be me. We're going to provide you with a social media toolkit. We're going to tell you about hashtags. It's always good to identify one hashtag for us all to use so that it can trend and we can all jump on the same thing. And if people feel uncertain about social media, retweeting is something that's really simple. It doesn't mean you have to create your own tweet. You can retweet. So I want to pause here and see if Sarah Bueller, who's a social media expert, has anything to add about amplifying your actions digitally.
Oh, you know, only about 8 straight hours of discussion. But I think you've covered the basics very well. And a lot of this stuff is probably, you're pretty close to it already. It's not revolutionary, really. It's just kind of using what you already know to make a bigger impact. That being said, I'm always happy to talk social media. Later on, we'll be sharing things like checklists, how to take photos, you know, making sure that your video is the format that we use. So as an added kind of impetus, a little temptation, we'll be rounding up the best photos and videos of the swarm and doing something fun with them. Things have, maybe we'll project it on the side of a building or play it outside Larry Fink's house. You know, the options are endless. So think that through, and I'm super happy, like if you are organizing something and there's a designated social media person, or you get that far where there's roles. If there's demand, we can meet together, maybe more than a few of us. So let's all just keep in touch and ask. And yeah, I know there's lots of the youth don't even need to figure it out. They already know, they live and breathe it. I don't know, TikTok. Saw that in the chat. Yes, let's do TikTok, and let's teach each other all how to do TikTok, and then we'll be masters right after. Okay. Check.
Thanks, Sarah. Next slide. So I've also learned it's important to have spokespeople, because if you're organizing action, you don't want to have to stop and talk. You need to keep your eye on the bigger picture, organizing your people, all of that. So it's good to have someone who's ready to talk to media if you've done media outreach. That is someone who would be good to be in touch with us about, and we can give talking points and make sure that that person is on message when talking to media, and also feel supported in terms of talking to journalists. People on the street may stop and ask you questions, and you need people who are free to talk with them. But also the police or security people outside of wherever you're having your action may want to know more about what you're doing there. So this is a picture in Boston of our friend Sarah, who just spoke about art builds. And it looks like she's dictating to the police officer rather than the other way around, which is why I love this photo. But it's good to have one or two people ready to do the talking for you so you can focus on taking action and organizing. Next
Excuse
slide.
me, can I interject?
Sure.
It looks more like, could you go back to the last screen? It looks like she's actually getting a ticket there. And
yeah.
Question, this is Heather in California. And my question is, do you have any resources for if you have a spokesperson, or if not, any scripts for defraying, legal action against you while you're conducting any actions? The kind of time buying techniques that can be used by specific language.
Yeah, great question. Let me ask Roberta to answer that. Yeah, sure. I can jump in real quick. Thank you so much, Heather.
Hi, Roberta.
Hi, thank you for that great question. Yes, we're going to be, and I think Debbie was gonna mention this at the end of her presentation, but we are going to be providing a toolkit that will provide lots of this stuff that Debbie has presented, like talking points.
I'm sorry, it's very muffled. I tried to pod my sound up. You guys are all very muffled, so it must be me, but you're going to have, what is it?
So we're going to be providing, yes, we're going to be providing all kinds of resources for the folks that will decide to host the action, which will include the talking points, messaging, social media resources. And in addition to that, we're going to pair up a coach for each action. And so that coach will be able to give you some advice in terms of how to interact with the police, like how to, for example, get some, I have to say, like, all these actions are meant to be very small. All these actions should not be arrestable. So, we're not here to do a training on nonviolent direct action. However, the coach will be able to kind of walk you through, like, how to interact with the police, how to de-escalate if the need arise, and all of the other skills that you may need on the street.
And the coaches are available to those of us that have a scheduled action, et cetera, like that?
Correct, yes. Coaches will be available for the folks that will sign up to host an action, yes. And there's some great points being made in the chat about saying to a police officer or security person, yeah, we'll clear out, but then taking your sweet time. I really like that. And it is true that being polite really helps. Next slide. And just a time check, Debbie, we should wrap up soon. Okay, great. So number 8 is one of the most important in terms of building relationships and making people feel like it mattered that they show up. And that is following up. So having a follow-up message ready to go to your people means it's easy for you. If you've written it in advance, a message that says thank you, then you can dump in a couple of images from photos you've taken, and also be ready to tell them what's next so that you keep engaging them. Next slide. I think somebody needs to mute, right, Roberta? Okay, so number 9 is to debrief. And I have learned that it's, sorry, it's really hard to talk over that.
Can whoever is host, please? Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're just trying to figure that out. I think we got it. Thanks. So I have learned to schedule a debrief ahead of time because otherwise it's something that just doesn't happen. So schedule your action and then schedule a time soon after to get people together again to talk about what worked and what could be better for next time. Next slide. So here is number 10 of the top 10 things, and I'm wondering what I missed. We don't have a whole lot of time, but I wonder if there's some burning thing that you've learned that's essential that you want to share. Yes, anyone who would like to share some best practices, just unmute your line and please share.
I'm familiar with, you know, the Action Against BlackRock. I know that name, but what is the name of this group?
This is the BlackRock's Big Problem Network.
BlackRock Big Problem Network.
Correct. Yes.
Okay, and so do you have some web presence or?
Yeah, sure. We will send out all additional information in the follow-up email.
And when you send a follow-up email, it will, because I signed in, you'll have my email to send it to me?
Yes, correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Heather.
I have a question.
Thank you, Pete. Go ahead, Cynthia.
Oh, thank you. So I work with Code Pink and Extinction Rebellion, and Code Pink's had a BlackRock campaign for a long time, but we don't just talk about fossil fuels. We talk about human rights violations, weapons manufacturing, military investments, that kind of thing, private prisons. How do people feel about bringing in those other issues along with fossil fuels? Thanks.
Thank you, Cynthia. I wanted to mention that our network is always working in solidarity with other groups, including Code Pink. We work very, very closely with folks from Code Pink and other groups, like, for example, Mi Gente and Color of Change. I have to say, like, BlackRock is such a giant that honestly has investments, like you mentioned, Cynthia, in anything that is possibly destructive. So not just for the planet, but also for people. And so BlackRock is also invested, for example, in surveillance companies that are targeting, for example, protesters, or data mining companies that, for example, are providing services to ICE and therefore driving the Trump campaign on mass deportation. And so our network is fully committed to amplifying and uplifting a lot of those fights. Because, as you know, I think, I'm not sure if it came out in the chat, but obviously, you know, all our fights are intersected, and ultimately, you know, the end goal is just the same, which is really to advance justice. And so we have a strong commitment on amplifying those other fights. And our network in of itself does focus on climate, with the recognition that any kind of pressure, any kind of campaign that goes after BlackRock is ultimately supporting all of the campaigns. And so, so wanted to mention that there's a lot of work that is taking place outside the climate world, but our network in of itself focuses on climate. Thank you. So I see there's other questions. Let's see. I can't see anyone on the screen.
Oh, right here.
Okay, go ahead.
Is this a part of the Keep It in the Ground 350 national campaign?
So we are not part of the 350 campaign, Keep It in the Ground in of itself, but we partner very closely with 350. A lot of the chapters, the 350 chapters, are certainly part of our network, and we are also part of the Stop the Money Pipeline Coalition, which was launched at the beginning of the year, which I think many of you learned about BlackRock through the Stop the Money Pipeline Coalition. That includes groups like 350, for example.
I have a question. Dean Cody from Brookline for Debbie New. Hi, Debbie. I'm curious about, what do you think of change?
You're kind of in and out.
and, songs. Again, can you hear me now? No.
I think
Okay.
you're asking about, Dean, I think you're asking about chanting and songs.
Write it in the chat.
Yeah, okay, great, thank you.
Yes.
My understanding about COVID and chanting and singing is that it's not a good idea. So we have to get creative and find other ways to get our message across.
Dean, I was looking into getting singers for my action on the 15th of September and was told very soundly that singing can, saliva, spittle can arc and travel huge distances apparently when you're singing. So it's sadly, we have to use taped music.
And there are ideas in the chat for some other great ways to make noise and make music outside. Check.
In Miami, some of the action ideas regarding, I think we should have it would be really great to have a whole thingy, like a doc on how to protest under a pandemic. But one of the ones was to go the night before and chalk out spaces where people can stand 6 feet apart. If you're, I guess, not in too busy of an area, that's for our city hall we were planning. And another idea one of our high schoolers brought up with Fridays for Future was to have a Zoom presentation for folks that are immunocompromised or can't show up in person, and to have a large speaker there that is playing the Zoom live feed of the audio, so people that do want to, I guess, chant or whatever from a Zoom call can do so. We were planning on that to do like a larger sort of to represent the amount of voices that are there. So that might be another solution. And then, God, there was one more that we had with the pandemic. But if anyone else has like these sort of tips and tricks, that was something that I've been writing down a lot of. And the other one was in terms of getting the message out there, spray chalks, sort of the wheat pasting, that sort of stuff, like leaving up posters and whatnot. I know wheat pasting is a little bit more risky in terms of illegal action, like leaving, pasting a poster on a thingy. But it was also brought up that a big shopping bag with like a flat bottom on it, where you cut out the bottom, put in a stencil, and then grab spray chalk, where you can just basically bend over to tie your shoe, spray really quickly with a spray chalk over the stencil, get up and walk away, and now there's a new message on the sidewalk that will wash away. Hopefully, if it's biodegradable and all that good stuff, that is a sort of low risk way. So if anyone else has these sort of things to amplify the message, please let me know, and I will write them down. And I would love a doc about protesting under a pandemic for best practices.
Wow, thank you, Brandon. All those are such great ideas. And certainly, we took notes ourselves too. So definitely we'll include them in our toolkit that will be sent out next week. Just a note about music and singing. We held an action in San Francisco in May. It was a really fun, amazing action. It was our first time getting outside after months of obviously not being able to take to the streets. And so the images that you all saw with the mural of the hot air mural and the folks painting, that was from San Francisco. And so for that action, we had about 20 people. So it was very small. And we basically had about 6-7 muralists, and then about 10 of us were just blocking the street to stop traffic from coming in. And then we actually had, this was so great. We had 3 amazing activists that live together, and they're all musicians. And so what they did, they stationed themselves like really far away from everyone. And then they sang throughout the entire action, and they were able to do so because they were really far from us, and also they are from the same household. And so they were, they had no risk of giving COVID to each other because they already live together. And so I do think that, as long as you keep the principles in mind, I think you can totally get creative on how to make your action. If you want to do something beyond just showing up with signs and do your videos and take your pictures and leave, if you want to do an action with spokespeople and really having music, I think we can help you do that in a safe way, as long as we respect guidelines. So there's a lot of room for creativity. I wanted to acknowledge that unfortunately we're almost at time. So I just wanted to give the opportunity to some of the folks on the call who are already planning some actions in the month of September, just to share a little bit about what they have cooking. So I'm going to pass it to actually Pete from New York to talk a little bit about some of the actions that he's planning this month.
Hey, it's a lot of fun in the city because we got big BlackRock here and their big building. So we do small socially distanced protests in front of their plaza. Some of the video you saw was from before COVID. So we've had a hot air on climate theme at our protests at BlackRock to kind of put a little pinprick in all their hot air ballooning of their claims on climate. So on September 17th, we'll be doing a few different things this month, swarming them, but on the 17th, we'll have a protest probably with between 30 and 50 people. This is New York City in a larger plaza, so we have a little bit more space, focusing on BlackRock's impact on the refugee crisis and climate migration, because climate change is fueling migration. They're the top funder of deforestation and fossil fuels, and they're also funding Palantir, which works with ICE. So we'll be calling on them to take action on climate and to stop funding Palantir for their human rights abuses and their role in the climate crisis. So that's September 17th, and it'll be a fun event with a good little crowd with nice visuals and images.
Right on. Thank you so much, Pete. That's so great. Let's see. Do we have anyone from Boston who can speak about the deforestation action that's going to take place?
Yeah, Sarah, do you want to do it?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. So we're planning a small action outside. Can I say, Debbie, who we're doing it outside of?
Yeah, because that's a major target for us, but we are tying it to BlackRock.
Yeah, exactly. So outside of State Street, which is headquarters in Boston, which is part of the big three, BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street, we have an incredible puppet lending library here in Boston, which we're going to get puppets from there. We're going to have trees, people dressed as trees, not too many, socially distanced, being cut down by deforesters in hard hats. I can't get my hard hat. I had it behind me just a second ago. With poetry and sort of microphone, and then we're going to deliver 75,000 petitions to the doors of State Street. We're going to then bike over to State Street Bank. The State Street Global Advisors is the asset manager. Bank is just over the river. We're going to go there. Then we're going to go on to BlackRock and deliver petitions there. So we're going to make it a three-pronged attack, small, tight, hopefully some visuals. I love the idea about drumming. Thank you. I know someone who drums. Hopefully we'll get a drummer in there. Check.
But question for you, Sarah.
Yeah.
You mentioned a petition. Is there a generic or a generic anti-BlackRock petition that we can circulate locally? Is it going toward an initiative or to legislation or?
Yes, so BlackRock and State Street and these asset managers, they fund deforestation. They fund the agribusiness that are cutting down all these trees that are not only causing climate change, but also violating indigenous rights. So on the website of, I think, Amazon Watch, Friends of the Earth, and BlackRock's Big Problem, Heather, I think you'll be able to find petitions that you can sign and share with your friends and your networks.
Thank you, Sarah. Okay, so unfortunately, we only have 4 minutes left, so I will, it's time to wrap up the call, but I wanted to share a few next steps for you all. So as Sarah mentioned, Sarah Bueller at the beginning of the call, you know, there's 3 ways for you all to take action. If you live in a city where there is a BlackRock office, we hope you'll join us in hosting an in-person small COVID-safe action. If you want to host an action, but you don't live in a city with a BlackRock office, you can still hold an action at a potentially either a fossil fuel company headquarters or a fossil fuel infrastructure project that it's very likely that BlackRock is funding. And so you could host an action there. Or the third option, if you don't, either you're not comfortable with hosting an action or you don't have any of the A or B option, you're certainly invited and encouraged to take action online. And so our network will follow up with all of you with a toolkit that will provide visuals, graphics, talking points, messaging, and of course, someone from our network that will work with you in helping you organize this action. And then in addition to that, we definitely have financial resources to reimburse you for whatever expenses you may incur for putting on your actions. And then yes, and then afterward, I do want to just like emphasize that, you know, the announcement that came in January from Larry Fink really was a result of climate activists organizing for like a year. And so we know that public pressure works on BlackRock. We know that that's how they move. And so, you know, we really just wanted to create this space for all of us to really just like create that, you know, additional pressure before we get into election season and before we get into the new year. It's like, let's remind BlackRock that we're still here, we're still going after them until they take concrete action. And then the last thing that I wanted to mention is there's going to be an opportunity to celebrate all together, of course, over Zoom, but we're going to be hosting like a sort of like happy hour celebration at the end of September, just for all of us to come together, hang out, and kind of celebrate the action that we took together. And so we hope that you can participate in that happy hour hangout, regardless of whether you host an action or not. And so with that, I want to share with you all a form for you all that that we ask if you're ready, if you feel like you're totally ready to host an action, like I said, like a small COVID safe action with all our support, please do fill out this form. That way we can get a hold of you and we can help you in organizing this action. We will also send out this link after this call so that you will have it in your email inbox along with the recording. And yeah, so we really, really hope that you get to join us. And what else? I don't know. My colleagues from the BlackRock's network, did I forget anything?
Just one thing, and it wasn't you, it was me. But if you need help promoting your event, you want to get it out to get the word out, you kind of know what to say, but you feel a little weird about it, we're going to have talking points, messaging docs, comms, guidance, the whole Megillah. So don't let that hold you back. We're here to help. And thank you. All Sarahs agree. Sarahs are amazing. Yeah, that's it. We're here to help.
I just want to let everyone know it is super fun. You feel so good afterwards. You're just like, yeah. So we're here to help. We're here to like exchange ideas, learn from each other. So yeah, it'll be great. It'll be great to be together. Check.
And I noticed in the chat someone asked about the San Francisco action. So the San Francisco action is going to be held on September 15th. So a couple of things, folks are welcome. We haven't even started planning, so please fill out the form if you want to be part of the planning so that we can loop you in. Also, if you want to host another action at the San Francisco office, you can certainly do so. Like I said, this is a swarm, so we want as many actions as possible, so you don't have to stick to that one action. And so September 15 in San Francisco, September 15 in Boston, September 17th in New York, and then other actions are yet to be determined, but you will receive all that information in a follow-up email. So with that, I want to invite everyone to get off mute and just say bye. And I look forward to reconnecting with you in the next few days.
Yay!
Bye, thank you.
Bye,
everybody.
thank you.
Bye, thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
See you online.
Woo!
Goodbye.
Woot, woot.
Here we go. September swarm.
September swarm. Woo! Woohoo!
Thank you, everyone.
Yay!